Hey guys, it's 242 here, and I have 3 malicious compliance stories for you today. This is also a special video because this is my first Patreon pick. Shout out goes to Shannon, who picked the topic for us today, and once a month I'll be doing this again. So if you like the chance, then hit the link below. If you don't want to, then please just hit the like button, because that will help me just as much, and make sure you subscribe so you can hear more stories. Well, with that, let's get started, and let me read you some stories about people being compliant in the best way. So our first story is, Mom told me to leave, so I did. Law enforcement got involved and she lost everything. This happened when I was 15. My mom was, and let's be real, she probably still is, a mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive narcissist. Some highlights are, when she was teaching my twin sister and I to read at the age of 4 or so, it was around 2 a.m. and my sister was having troubles learning, so my mother's solution was to beat her with a sandal every time she got a flashcard wrong. Same thing happened when my mother had me transcribe an essay she had written to my handwriting when I was 7. Every time I started a letter from the wrong position, like starting a capital M from the bottom line, she would beat me with one of her sandals. This too happened later at night, so when I got too delirious from the exhaustion and pain, she would drag me by the neck and literally throw me into a cold shower to wake me up so we could more easily continue the waking nightmare. When I was 13, I told her I wanted to live with my dad. They were divorced, and she told me she didn't care what I did after I turned 18. I later figured out that this was because the child support stopped at age 18. Anywho, fast forward to age 15. Our relationship was understandably strained. We had guests, and she liked to use guests as a way of controlling our behavior through shame. It's easier to be an angsty teenager when your grown-up friends from church aren't watching and judging everything you do. This makes it easy for her to pretend to be the firm but loving mother, all while slipping in sideways comments like velvet daggers. Well, I decided I wasn't going to subject myself to that whole thing and spent the day outside in the woods nearby. We lived in the mountains at the time, so it was less than 100 feet from the house. When I saw our guests had left, I went to go back inside. My mother, perhaps unhappy at being denied day-long emotional abusive routine, told me I wasn't welcome and that I should leave. My 15-year-old brain heard her words and knew she meant only a little while, but it also recognized that she failed to specify any time frame at all. So I hiked a couple miles to a friend's house and asked if I could spend a couple days. When my friend's dad found out that I was there and why, he was ticked and said I could stay as long as I needed. I didn't go home that evening or the next. My mom became concerned and contacted law enforcement to report me missing. This is a big deal for several reasons. We live in the mountains on a national park, so it was very real possibility that I had been attacked by a wild animal, become injured while hiking, drowned, or even been kidnapped. Nobody knew of my mother's abusive tendencies or the squalor and neglect my sister and I lived in. Most importantly, the law enforcement was the local park rangers with which she worked daily. Law enforcement immediately contacted my dad's side of the family to see if I had turned up there or contacted them. They promptly freaked out and came to my house with a lawyer on standby. Law enforcement then hired a dog to track my scent, and then everyone freaked out, because the dog tracked me to a nearby river where my trail died because the dog couldn't pick up any more scent. Over the next couple of days, there were people going in and out of my house. rangers, lawyers, my family, etc. And several noticed an overpowering scent of cleaning chemicals, but only the lawyer considered why a clean house would reek of chemicals. Law enforcement started to canvass the nearby woods and neighborhood. My friend's dad came to me and asked if there was somewhere else I could stay. He told me that he wouldn't kick me out, but didn't want to have to lie to the police or let the dogs on his property. My friend and I figured we'd just go camping for a week or so, but instead, I looked up my dad's side of the family and called, and they picked me up right away. Understandably, everyone had questions. When I told them what was happening, the lawyers, horrified, pounced. A judge issued an emergency change of custody and prevented her from gaining custody until she underwent a psych evaluation and therapy, which my mother would never allow. The rangers, equally horrified, completely shunned my mother, and she eventually lost her job. Since she was only allowed to live in the park because she worked there, she was kicked out of her house. My friend's father and the trackers were members of the local community and churches, and they too shunned my mother. She lost her job, her house, her church, and her friends, all because she told me to leave, and I did. Edit. For clarity, I'm 32 now. This happened a while ago. Edit. It wasn't clear, and I didn't want to make it longer. When my dad's family got involved, they were able to reach an arrangement where I got to leave with them for a time, but my sister stayed. I had to go back to my mom's for a short while, but the judge issued an emergency change of custody, and my sister and I went to live with my dad. My sister and I have been in therapy, and she is teaching now. Life isn't perfect, but it is better. Edit. People keep asking about the chemicals. The house was normally trashed. My mom kept an untrained dog, and the carpet would be soaked with the dog's feces and urine. The few times we had guests, we would have to crawl around the dog's potty spot and clean it up, making the house smell good. My mom freaked out when she realized the rangers and CPS might come around. She did a deep clean of the house before reporting me missing because she couldn't afford to have them realize what they were going to walk on. First of all, that last of it, that's really disgusting. How could anyone live like that? Third of all, I'm really happy OP got out of this household when they did and got their sister out. This woman is absolutely horrible, and I'm happy they got the therapy and the help that they needed. I don't even know how she got custody to begin with. But that's the end of this story, so let's go on to the next one. Our next story is, must attend interview in person. I was working for a university in the UK as an administration officer when I decided to apply for a role of senior administration officer in the same office. I submitted my application and didn't hear anything for a while. A week or so later, I was abroad for a week to visit my family, when I received an email to confirm that I got invited for an interview the next day at 9 a.m. I replied and asked if I could postpone the interview until Monday because I'd be back by then, but they refused. The lady who refused was my current manager, and she knew I was abroad, so I didn't think this was very fair. I asked if I could do the interview over Skype instead, but she also refused that. The interview time was set, and if I was interested, I will be there. Otherwise, it's my loss. I was ticked off, as I couldn't believe how inflexible they were. I started rereading the email again and decided to go through the attachments to see what I had to prepare for the interview. I noticed they had added a travel expense form which stated that if you travel from 5 miles or further, you could claim your expenses. Being abroad in Europe is definitely over 5 miles, so I decided to drive to the airport, book a last-minute flight, which was £350 for a one-way, got a cab from the airport, and stayed in a hotel near the university, as my house would have been on the other side of London. I made it to the interview in time, and they were shocked to see me, as they obviously didn't expect me. The interview went well, but I didn't get the job. When I handed in my expense claim form, I was advised that it only applied to UK travel, and they refused to pay. I asked them why they had sent me the claim form when they knew I was traveling in from abroad, and said nowhere on the form it stated that it's for UK travel only. They said it was their policy, but I was not allowed to view said policy. I was due a lot of money, so I decided to file for a Freedom of Information request for them to provide the policy. This appeared to be a historical policy, and as they could not send me the evidence, they decided to pay my travel expenses, which came to a total of £550 plus. The policy has been updated since. Edit. I now work for a design agency, and I am no longer with the university. I'm really happy OP is not working for them anymore. They definitely didn't want OP. They knew who they wanted, and they were trying to make sure that OP couldn't be there for the interview. And I find that this is a little malicious compliance and a little bit of revenge with it. Petty revenge, but still a little revenge. So our last story is, parents forbid me from using my preferred name at school? I'll just keep adding letters to the end of it. I came out to my parents as a trans man before the start of freshman year of high school, and they were extremely hostile about it. So much so that they forbid me from using my chosen name at school or even with my friends. Well, I thought that was a load of crap and changed my name in the school system on the first day. It had my legal name listed, but for most purposes, my preferred name was used. After about 3 months, they found out about it and were ticked. So they said to me,
OP, you have to change your name in the school right now.
So I was like, okay, I will. So I changed my name from Bob, not my actual name, to Bob with 2 B's. The next day, they checked the homework portal again and discovered that I had indeed changed it, but not to my legal name.
OP, we told you to change it back to legal name.
No, you told me to change it, and I did. My God, were they ticked. I was grounded for a month and my phone was taken, but it was totally worth it. So, after that, every time they told me to change it, I would tack on another letter. By the end of the school year, my name was Bob with 8 B's. Eventually, they stopped grounding me and just gave up. I was allowed to use my preferred name for the rest of high school, provided it wasn't around them. Note, my mom is coming around, and I'm planning to cut off my father once she divorces him for being a piece of garbage. I'm really happy OP's mom is starting to come around, and it seems like they know that they're going to cut their dad off once they can. But yeah, no, this is not fair to basically dead name someone. So I'm hoping OP has found some actual support to help them through all this. I hope the best for you, OP. With that, we are at the end of our stories. I hope you guys enjoyed the first Patreon pick. If you'd like to pick a topic that I will read, then join my Patreon. Link is in the box below. I hope you have a great night or day, and I will see you guys Sunday with some spooky stories. Bye!